I've known Tyler Perry for years. Tyler Perry is hiding in the closet, trying to hide his sexuality and not really doing a good job about it when you stop and think about it. The man's gay. Like any other gay man who's... You ever see a gay guy and he has a wife and kids, and you're constantly looking at that man saying, something ain't right with that one.
Tyler Perry might have built $1 billion empire, but not everyone in Hollywood is buying into the image he puts out. According to Katt Williams, there's one person in particular that Tyler Perry fears more than anyone else in the industry, and that person is Eddie Murphy. It's not because Eddie's loud or constantly in the spotlight. In fact, it's the opposite. Eddie Murphy barely speaks, rarely gives interviews, and doesn't show up for the usual Hollywood social scene. But even in that silence, he commands more respect than most people who never leave the camera's view. And Katt says that's exactly what has Tyler Perry rattled. Because the kind of influence Eddie Murphy holds doesn't come from studio deals or Hollywood handshakes. It comes from something much deeper: legacy, impact, and a realness that can't be faked. Katt Williams broke it all down recently, saying Tyler Perry isn't just running a media machine, he's actively controlling who gets to shine and who gets shut out. Katt claims Perry has warned his actors not to associate with him, not because Katt did something wrong, but because he saw too much. Katt was at the infamous Diddy parties, and according to him, so was Tyler. That alone might not mean much until you consider the kind of parties those were rumored to be exclusive, private, no phones allowed, and full of some of Hollywood's most powerful figures doing things most folks can't even speak on. Katt says Tyler Perry was there, and not just once, he was a regular. And when someone like Katt starts calling that out publicly, it's no wonder Tyler wants to keep his distance. But even deeper than that, Katt points out that Tyler's fear isn't really about him, it's about what Eddie Murphy represents. See, Eddie Murphy doesn't play by Hollywood's rules. He never had to. By the time he was 19, Eddie had already saved Saturday Night Live from cancellation. Then he went on to drop classic after classic: 40 Acres, Beverly Hills Cop, Coming to America, Trading Places, Harlem Nights, the list goes on, and all of it he did without bowing to the system. No tap dancing, no apologies, no selling out. He stayed true to himself, and the people respected that. That kind of authenticity doesn't just attract fans. It terrifies people who built their success by playing it safe. Tyler Perry, for all his money and power, is still operating within a very controlled framework. His movies follow a predictable pattern: black women in pain, black men as either abusers or saviors, and always some moral lesson wrapped up in trauma for a while. That formula worked. It brought in money. It built a studio. But now, people are starting to see through it. And when you compare that formulaic structure to someone like Eddie Murphy, who never boxed himself in, it's easy to see why Perry might feel threatened. What really makes this deeper, though, is how Eddie Murphy handles his power. He doesn't throw it around. He doesn't chase awards. He doesn't jump on every red carpet, and yet his name still holds weight. When he enters a room, everything shifts. People pay attention. And that's without him doing anything flashy. Tyler Perry might have the spotlight, but Eddie owns a room. And in Hollywood, that silent kind of dominance is what scares them. People who rely on smoke and mirrors to stay relevant. Katt also pointed out that Eddie Murphy doesn't answer Tyler's calls. Not because of some petty beef, but because Eddie doesn't have to play that game. He doesn't need Tyler Perry. He doesn't need the validation. That silence says more than any public statement ever could. It's a form of power that doesn't need to shout to be felt. And Tyler knows it. Behind the scenes, Katt says there's been a lot of manipulation going on. Tyler Perry allegedly tells actors not to talk to Katt, not to associate with Jaguar Wright, and definitely not to bring up certain topics. Why? Because these are the people who know things. They've seen what happens behind closed doors. They've been in the rooms where deals are made, where secrets are traded like currency, where people's careers get built or destroyed based on loyalty, silence, and fear. And Tyler Perry, according to Katt, is not just a participant in that world, he's one of its gatekeepers. Jaguar Wright didn't hold back either. She said flat out that Tyler Perry has been at those parties, the ones where no women are invited, the ones where things happen that never make it to the press. She says he's not just a visitor, he's involved. And that kind of involvement means Perry has a lot to lose. If the wrong tape ever surfaces, or if the wrong person decides to talk. That's why people like Katt Williams and Jaguar Wright are dangerous to him. They're not afraid anymore. They've already been blackballed. They've already faced the consequences, and now they're talking. But even with all that swirling around, Eddie Murphy stays calm. He doesn't need to air out dirty laundry. He doesn't chase headlines. He just keeps moving in silence. And that quiet is loud. It speaks volumes to those who know how power really works in Hollywood. Eddie doesn't need to expose anybody. His very presence is a threat to those who built their careers on carefully managed images. The thing is, Tyler Perry's brand has always been about representation, at least on the surface. He positioned himself as the one who gave black actresses roles, who created space for black stories, who brought faith, family, and forgiveness to the screen. But now, those same people he uplifted are starting to speak out. Monique told the world how Tyler Perry helped blackball her after she refused to promote a movie for free. He even admitted to spreading lies about her, but he never corrected the record in public. That silence cost her millions, and it sent a message to everyone in the industry: step out of line, and you're done. And then there's Tina Arnold, and other black actresses who are now pushing back against the kind of roles Perry offers. They're tired of playing bitter, broken women with no growth, no joy, and no future. They're tired of the trauma being the only story. They want more. And they're realizing that being in a Tyler Perry movie doesn't mean what it used to, doesn't open doors the way it promised. And that shift is happening fast. Katt Williams is making it clear that the power dynamics in Hollywood are changing. And Tyler Perry, who once looked untouchable, is now being questioned on all sides. His storytelling, his private life, his involvement with certain elites, it's all under the microscope. And the person who represents the opposite of that controlled image, the person who's never needed Hollywood's approval to be great, is Eddie Murphy. When you look at their careers side by side, it's night and day. Eddie Murphy took risks. He pushed boundaries. He made all-black casts mainstream in a time when Hollywood barely allowed one black actor per film. He created cultural moments that still resonate today. Tyler Perry, meanwhile, built a system that relies on predictability. His stories rarely change. His characters follow the same arcs, and for a long time. That formula made him rich, but it also made him vulnerable. Because once people stop buying into that formula, there's not much left behind it. And here's where it gets even more real. There are whispers getting louder every day that one of those private parties hosted by certain elites was caught on camera, real footage, and if it ever leaks, names like Tyler Perry might not survive the fallout. Katt says he's seen too much. He's been followed, threatened, offered things that didn't feel right. And now he's talking because he knows the system wants to bury the truth. But people are listening now in a way they weren't before. Tyler Perry's movies often portray abusive men, broken women, and families in constant pain. Critics have long pointed out that these portrayals, while profitable, also reinforce stereotypes. And now, people are starting to ask if there's a reason for that, if maybe those scripts aren't just fiction. Maybe they reflect something deeper, something Perry has seen, or worse, lived. And that's the part that has people uncomfortable, because when art imitates life, and that life starts to get exposed, the whole house of cards can come down. Eddie Murphy, for all his success, never got the full recognition from the system. Only one Oscar nomination for Dreamgirls*, a role he said didn't even showcase his full range. Meanwhile, Tyler Perry has received high honors, awards, and a level of acceptance from the Hollywood elite that Eddie never chased. And that says a lot. In this town, you don't get celebrated unless you play by the rules. Unless you smile for the cameras and say the right things. Eddie never did that. He made his own way, and in doing so, he exposed the system without even trying. Now, as more people speak out, as more actors and insiders begin pulling back the curtain, the conversation is shifting. It's not just about who's successful, it's about how they got there. What deals were made, what truths were buried, what silence was bought. And Tyler Perry's name keeps coming up in the middle of all that. Whether it's the allegations from Monique, the comments from Katt Williams, or the whispers from those elite parties, his image is starting to crack. In contrast, Eddie Murphy remains untouchable. Not because he's perfect, but because he never pretended to be anything else. He didn't build his brand on false narratives or controlled storytelling. He just showed up, did the work, and let the audience decide. And for that, he has something Tyler Perry can never buy: respect that lasts generations. This isn't just about celebrity gossip. It's about power, legacy, and the stories we tell. Tyler Perry built his career on telling black stories, but now people are asking whose truth was he really telling? And at what cost? As Hollywood changes and the old systems start to crack, the real ones like Eddie are finally getting the recognition they deserve. And the ones who played it safe might be the first to fall. When the truth finally comes to light as the smoke clears and the truth starts to take shape, more and more folks are realizing that the Hollywood game isn't just about talent. It's about control, influence, narratives. And Tyler Perry has spent years sitting in a position where he could shape those narratives. From the director's chair to the writer's room, all the way down to who gets hired and who gets blackballed. But with Katt Williams pulling back the curtain, and Eddie Murphy's legacy standing strong without ever needing that system, the comparison gets more uncomfortable by the day. When you really study Tyler Perry's career, it becomes clear that he's always been walking a fine line between empowerment and exploitation. Yes, he put black actors on screen when Hollywood wouldn't. Yes, he built the first black-owned major studio in Atlanta. And yes, he created jobs for hundreds of black people. But what's starting to come into question is the asterisk quality asterisk of the stories being told. And more importantly, asterisk why asterisk those stories always seem to circle back to pain, abuse, betrayal, and suffering. There's a reason people like Monique and Tina Arnold, and even Blair Underwood, have started peeling back that glossy surface and asking the hard questions. Why does Perry always return to the same stereotypes? Why do strong, complex black men rarely get a full arc in his films unless they're preachers or saviors? Why are black women always crying, begging, suffering, or getting revenge? Where is the joy? Where is the complexity? Where is the growth? Compare that to Eddie Murphy's legacy. His films weren't always polished or perfect, but they were full of asterisk life asterisk. They were hilarious, bold, and layered. They showed black people winning, laughing, outsmarting the system, and building wealth. They didn't just break box office. Of course, they broke molds. Eddie didn't write stories that made people feel sorry for his characters. He wrote stories that made people root for them, celebrate them, see themselves in them. And that's why his impact still lingers, even when he's not front and center. That kind of legacy creates pressure, not just on other actors, but on people like Tyler Perry, who have built careers on being the face of black Hollywood. Katt Williams says it plainly. Tyler Perry fears Eddie Murphy because Eddie doesn't need Hollywood. He is Hollywood. Eddie didn't sell out to get where he is. He didn't bend to fit into anyone's box, and now that more people are waking up, the boxes that Tyler Perry created are starting to feel like cages. And it's not just about who's more successful, it's about who told the truth. Eddie Murphy walked through doors that weren't even open yet and kicked them off the hinges. Tyler Perry walked through the doors that Eddie helped open, and some say he closed those same doors behind him once he got in. Katt's not just talking noise when he says Tyler is pulling strings behind the scenes. He's pointing out a pattern. The actors who question the system, who speak too loudly, who don't fit the image, those are the ones who disappear. And when those same actors start naming names and connecting the dots, Tyler Perry's name keeps popping up in the middle of it. What's wild is that Tyler still hasn't answered for any of this. The allegations from Monique, never fully addressed. The rumors of his presence at Diddy's private parties, no comment. The claims from Katt Williams about controlling who gets jobs and who gets iced out, silence. And that silence says more than any statement ever could. Because here's the real kicker: Tyler Perry could have used his position to change the entire industry. He had the money, the platform, and the trust of his community. But instead, many believe he used that power to repeat the same stories, hire the same faces, and keep the same flawed formula rolling. Why? Some say it was safety, some say it was business. But others say it was fear. Fear of losing that seat at the table. Fear of rocking the boat. Fear of someone like Eddie Murphy walking back in and reminding everyone what asterisk real asterisk power looks like. Katt Williams is making it clear that we're entering a new era where silence is no longer protectio. And the people are watching now. The fans, the journalists, the actors, the whistleblowers, they're all connecting the dots. And when one powerful figure like Diddy starts getting exposed, it doesn't stop there. Because if those private party tapes really exist, if that rumored footage ever leaks, Tyler Perry's name won't just be mentioned. It'll be front and center. Even folks like Ice Cube, who usually keep things coded, have started dropping warnings. He said the industry's built on fear, that people are afraid to speak. And when someone like Cube says that out loud, you know the pressure behind the scenes is real. This isn't about tabloids or gossip. This is about survival. It's about who gets to control the narrative and who gets sacrificed when things start to crumble. And while Tyler Perry keeps smiling for the cameras and collecting awards, people are starting to look deeper at his scripts, at his character choices, at his behind-the-scenes moves, and they're asking, who does this really serve? Because when you stack up the trauma-filled roles, the recycled stories, and the tight control over who gets to speak, it doesn't feel like liberation. It feels like manipulation. On the flip side, Eddie Murphy never asked to be crowned. He never begged for a seat at the table. He built his own table and invited the whole culture to eat with him. That's why his silence hits different, because even without the awards, the accolades, or the approval of the Academy, Eddie still holds power, a different kind of power, the kind that can't be bought. And Tyler Perry, with all his business, acumen and billion-dollar deals, knows deep down that he'll never have that kind of respect. That's why Katt Williams says Perry is scared, not of Eddie's words, but of what he represents. A black man who never bowed, who never had to change who he was to succeed. A man who didn't use trauma as a stepping stone, but brilliance, humor, and heart. That's a mirror Tyler Perry doesn't want to look into, because in that reflection, he might not see the king he thinks he is. He might see someone who traded authenticity for access, and now the bill is coming due. More actors are stepping away. More women are speaking up. More insiders are telling the truth. The shield is cracking, and when it breaks, we'll finally see what's been hiding underneath. And the question will no longer be whether Tyler Perry deserves to be celebrated. It'll be whether he ever deserved the crown at all. This isn't about hating on success. It's about asking who got left behind to build that success, who was silenced, sidelined, or sacrificed along the way. And why are those stories always the same? No matter how many movies Perry makes, as the truth continues to spill, it's becoming clear that the black Hollywood power structure is shifting. The ones who told the truth are finally being heard. The ones who control the narrative are losing their grip. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Eddie Murphy stands tall, untouched, unbothered, and undeniably powerful. He doesn't need to expose anyone. His legacy already did that for him. And for Tyler Perry, that might be the scariest truth of all.